It is kind of funny for folks who don't know this. Like Craig and Abby and Jacob have a show with Ryan Dole called Toy Anxiety outside of just their Yes Have Some show where they just talk about toys, like of all kinds of things that have nothing to do with Ghostbusters necessarily. And sometimes they do, but often they don't. And you've gone from being like, hey, we make a show on YouTube during a pandemic to, hey, we're now literally the people who are like providing commentary on the back of toys like the inside of a novel, which is kind of funny.
It's weird too. Toy Anxiety has grown a lot. It kind of just took off, and there's a lot of people who find us through that and don't even know about YHS Prime or YHS,
right?
You know, the flagship show or whatever we call it.
They're Deep Space Nine fans who never even knew about the Next Generation.
That would be insane. That would be. Like somebody's just like a huge, you know, Star Trek. What's the one with Scott Bakula? That one?
Enterprise. Yeah.
Like I love this Enterprise. I wonder if they've never done anything before this, have they? Like,
have they? No.
You never thought about checking out the history of the property? Like, so yeah, Toy Anxiety is really fun and it kind of gives us another outlet. But we ended up having to kind of make it its own thing separate from YHS and just because of YouTube algorithms. YouTube does not want you to talk about movies and toys. It's like you pick
it's like one or the other. Yeah. You know, one thing or another. That's it. Yeah.
So yeah, we've gotten to know the guys at NECA, and it's also funny. Like we've gotten to know, of all things, like I can't get in touch with anybody who's worked on Hasbro Ghostbusters, but we're really close with the Marvel guys, like Ryan and Dan and those guys. Like they're great. Can't get Pam on the show.
No, I was gonna say you don't have Pam's number, huh? She's not on speed dial. So
you know what it is. If anybody's interested in knowing this, I think what it is with the core brands like Marvel, Star Wars, G.I. Joe, they kind of have like their set teams.
Yeah.
But for the floater brands, like stuff maybe Hasbro doesn't own, or they license it out, but it's evergreen. But like Ghostbusters, it'll be big for 6 months and then it kind of dips down. I don't think they don't necessarily have dedicated personnel on those teams. Like they'll have people who are like the brand managers for a certain period of time, and then they might, you know, float around. At least that's what I've heard.
This is a good opportunity to ask you this as somebody who talks a lot about toys more than I do and who knows probably more about them than I do, even though I feel like I know a lot about like RC traps and where to find them. But like that's the thing I've become an expert in apparently. But
that is true.
You mentioned this to me. I feel kind of silly because Tony Taylor of, you know, Phantasm Toys, Tony Taylor, who's awesome, was on the show last week. And we did this entire episode sort of wish casting what we would like to see coming potentially at Toy Fair. And then you and I talked and you were like, hey, I don't think Hasbro's going to Toy Fair. And I was like, what? So what do you feel about that? Like, what do you think about the fact that like Hasbro, Mattel, some of the big toy companies are just kind of like, we don't need Toy Fair anymore. Like, we're just not going to go.
So I think about this a lot, which I don't know. I don't know what that says about me. I think so. Part of this is just because of COVID, right? COVID changed things.
Everything.
Much like the speech given in The Dark Knight Rises about how Batman changed things. Sorry. Maybe that
we're gonna have to cue up the soundtrack and then get copyright struck.
Maybe that was Dark Knight actually. No, so Toy Fair traditionally forever, the big industry conference that would happen at the beginning of the year, usually February.
Yeah.
Where all the toy companies would roll out their offerings for the year, right? It is covered by press, but it's more for retailers to go. It's where deals get made, basically. It's a deal making thing. Like, hey, we are Hasbro. This is what we are offering from all of our brands throughout the year. And we're going to sell to all the big box retailers, the online retailers, etc. COVID happened. Toy Fair didn't really happen for a couple of years. And now it's back. This is the first year it's back and proper, but it's happening at a weird time. They've moved it from February to the end of September. So, you know, when they roll it out in February, you're trying to sell all of your stock in preparation for the holidays
Right.
for the following December. But now all that's already done. So for smaller companies, for your mid-sized companies, NECA, Super 7, McFarlane, whatever, there's obviously they still have to go make their deals for whatever. But I have a feeling Hasbro, Mattel, the two giants, they don't really need Toy Fair anymore. It's a huge expense for them to set up and do these big showcases. And what they've both learned, and really Hasbro, if you think about Hasbro's rollout in 2020, they're not even in the convention center. They do their own private rollout, and they're only rolling out their collector brands at Toy Fair. It's not like all their kids focused stuff is happening somewhere else.
Right.
But during the pandemic, Hasbro started doing PulseCon, and it is a lot cheaper and a lot more efficient for them to do a YouTube stream,
right,
in-house in Providence or whatever, than to literally spend millions of dollars to do the convention center. So it's a bummer because we got to go to the one in 2020 and it was really cool. And you have all that's where they revealed all the Plasma series and all the Kenner classics and everything else. So yeah, I have confirmed through my sources, people that work for these companies, that both Mattel and Hasbro will not be at Toy Fair.
Yeah.
Hasbro does have PulseCon a couple days from now, and they've announced which brands they're focusing on. PulseCon has been 2 days the last couple of years, just a one-day event. I do not believe there's going to be any Ghostbusters at PulseCon, but it's still a little early.
Yeah.
Movie's not going to come out till next spring. I would keep an eye out on Hasbro's channels for announcements. They do have that 1027 event that they've been doing every year, which is like a Pulse exclusive, kind of an informal rollout. That's where they did the, isn't that where they announced that they were going to do the Proton Pack? Yeah. A couple years ago. So that is end of October. Maybe we'll get some Ghostbusters there, but I'm bummed because I really loved Toy Fair, and now that doesn't mean they're never going to come back. Maybe they'll see value in it in the future, but not this year.
Or maybe it means that Toy Fair will have to figure out how to create value for those brands to come back if they're going to continue to run it. But I think it's kind of analogous to looking at something like E3. E3 for years was like the place to go to, like if you were a video game company, if you were going to do a technology stuff, you'd go to Consumer Electronics Expo, right? CES was called like Computer Expo Show or something. I can't remember, but like Nintendo Power used to talk about CES because it was such a big deal when I was a kid. And all of those conventions now too are kind of like, I don't think E3 happened this year. I think they just kind of like rolled it up and went, nope, we're not doing it again, because a lot of these brands, I think you're right, like companies figured out, well, we can talk directly to our customer base now. We can do live streaming. We can develop followers who are already subscribing to us. And we can tell them, hey, next week we're going to show you something you really want to see. And even if they can't attend live, they can go watch it afterwards. So
and it'll be interesting too with like Comic-Con this year. Like the actors were on strike and the writers were on strike, and they couldn't have the big Marvel rollout and the big DC rollout and everything. But Comic-Con still happened. Everybody had a great time. I think all of those companies will continue to be at San Diego. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's some hesitancy, because like it is a financial thing. Like for Hasbro to set up at Toy Fair, they're renting out a building. They are, having to pay speakers. They're having to invite all this press. It's just like a big to do. The other thing is, this is, I think, something to keep in mind too. Toy Fair used to kind of kick off convention season. It happened in February, and then there'd be more reveals at Comic-Con, and then in the summer. Then a couple months later, there's more reveals at New York Comic-Con. But now Comic-Con just happened, and then there was PowerCon, which all the smaller toy companies did. And then there's Toy Fair, and then New York Comic-Con is in a couple weeks. So it just doesn't. Maybe Toy Fair will move back to February. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the logic was of moving it to September. I can't, I don't know. But someone thought it was a good idea somewhere. So
yeah, I just think like there's just weird. Like it was really bizarre. Like we went to Toy Fair in 2020.
Yeah.
And this is like literally 3 weeks before the world shut down.
Yep.
And the Javits Center, where they have Toy Fair and New York Comic Con, became a makeshift hospital. And
right.
I think we've gotten so far away from that, and I think they made some drastic like future changes. Like, oh, we need to start doing this in the fall, and like I don't know what the thinking was, but like
Right.
things have kind of gotten back to normal, but there's adjustments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with it, but I hope that we still get to see, I hope the 10/27 event, maybe we'll get to see something cool, Ghostbusters wise. I think you're right. We may not see it at like PulseCon because that may be too early. We didn't see stuff from Entertainment Earth we thought we were going to see in July, whatever that was.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about it this way. If the movie is scheduled to come out end of March, we don't have any reason right now to think that there's going to be delays. Like even if the actor strike doesn't end till, I don't know, January, if they still had to do voiceovers and ADR, they could do that stuff very quickly. If they have reshoots, who knows? But I mean, sometimes that stuff happens within weeks. Like it just does. I mean, they did the Ernie Hudson post-credit scene for Afterlife, like literally a couple weeks before they showed that movie at CinemaCon. So I don't know. But anyways, if all goes according to plan with the movie release schedule, I would expect store shelves to get first wave of Ghostbusters merchandise by like late January. Like it's not very far. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Like Q1, because if we're looking at a March release date still, if that holds, then you've got to get stuff out on the shelves sometime around then. So
yeah, and at some point you will see me angrily posting about how everything's register locked. They won't sell it even though it's on the floor, even though it's like all repaints of stuff I already have.
It's fine. Right after you finally get your stuff and you like post a picture of yourself with 2 of something, I'm sure someone will comment underneath it, "This is why there's none where I live, because you have them all."
You bought 3 in Atlanta, which affects Iowa's inventory.
Exactly. It's all because of you. I can't wait till we get back to that point on Facebook.
That's fun. That's where it's fun. Do you, what are you hoping to see as far as toys from the new movie?
I've been saying for a long time that I really want to see an Ecto-1 that really rolls. That my figures fit in, my Plasma series figures fit in, and my Maddie collector figures by virtue of that would fit in. I don't really think I'm ever going to get it, to be honest. I think that I'm probably going to be left pretty disappointed just because I think that there's probably some real issues of hammering out a license with GM and paying fees for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
but
I would think that there's got to be a way to do it. But I don't know. I have no idea. I've thought about that a lot too. I would love that. I would love something in a 6-inch scale.
But I was talking about this last week with Tony that like I'm not necessarily in the need for like a whole, like I really love the thing that was most fun for me from the last line was the Fright Features figures. Like they're the thing that I enjoyed the most because they had the most sort of like toyetic like appeal to them. And as much as the Plasma series figures are cool and I like them, like the other figures are just more like they're fun. So I kind of hope to see more of the Fright Features line. It would be cool to see a Firehouse playset for them, but I'm not holding out hope. But I've said
the Fright Features.
Yeah, like I want to, like you know this, like you get what I'm talking about. Grayskull, they did a Grayskull Origins, right, for Masters of the Universe, where they update that playset, they add sound to it. It's the same playset. It's still in scale with the original old school figures because it fits Origins, and Origins is in scale. So it's like it just feels like an updated version of the thing I had when I was a kid that does way more cool stuff. So I want like it would be cool to have a Firehouse playset that had like a button you pushed and like the bells went off and like you know, somebody yelled out, "We got one."
I haven't even thought I wouldn't be shocked if there's some sort of Firehouse playset for the Fright Features figures.
That'd be cool.
I would hope that it's amazing and just as good as the old Kenner one. It won't be, but it would be cool. Like listen, I loved the Afterlife Ecto-1 that they put out.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as good as the Kenner one.
No, especially because they put the Kenner one out at the same time. So it was like,
I want
that one. Like, give me the purple box, because that thing is what I've been wanting a complete one of forever, and now I can just buy one for $29.99. So yeah.
But I'm excited about that. It's Ghostbusters. The toys are always going to be fun, and I hope they can do more Plasma series, and I have a feeling I wonder if Hasbro's rethinking some of their strategy with 6-inch figures, because the Indiana Jones line tanked so bad.
Yeah.
Like I usually am not a fan of making like having a subjective opinion based on anecdotal evidence, but I promise you, those Indiana Jones figures, even the retro stuff, just nobody cared. And not that many people cared about that movie either. It's like a weird, like the whole build up to that movie, I was thinking, this is going to be huge. This is going to be massive. And then it came out and it was like, does anybody actually care about Indiana Jones? Maybe nobody actually cares anymore. But all that to be said, I think Ghostbusters, I think it has a bright future. I really do. I love the Afterlife cast so much, and knowing that they're all back. Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah, I hope, like, and that's not to say I don't want to see Plasma Series figures. I'd be happy to see them if they're out. I'm just much like I'm kind of, I said this last week that I'm kind of starting to think more about what do I value more. Like, I mean, I'm not, this is not to slag on it or put it down to anybody, but like there's that Egon Spengler Spirit of Spengler Funko Pop that's getting teased this week. And I know some people were like, I need that. And I'm like, I'm so done with Funko Pops. I just can't anymore. Like they just take I'm so finished with them.
Jake and I talked about this tonight. I think to me, Funko Pops are like a nice entry level into collecting. Yeah. Like if you want to dabble with something fun to buy that costs $10, that's traditionally not that hard to find. They're just not my thing. I used to have a bunch of them, not so much anymore. I have a couple of the Bill Murray ones, and it's mainly because it's like there's never going to be another Stripes or What About Bob Bill Murray figure. So it's like this is all I got. And the fact that I'm at Walmart buying Stripes figures is just funny.
Right. I mean, in my case, I bought the mini puffed ones from Afterlife and none of the rest of them because I was like, hey, I haven't, how many different action figures or how many different poses of these little characters am I actually going to get? And they're like, I can make a diorama out of them that'll look cool with my big signed pop. And, so it was like, okay, cool. I can do something with these. But I was like, I don't need a muncher. I don't need a little Phoebe. I just don't need this stuff. It's just not,
The mini puffs are cool because they look different. Like I kind of like the new chicken nugget, the McDonald's chicken McNugget Funkos, because they don't look like Funko Pops. They look like something else.
Look at something else.
I was walking through. I had to pick up a prescription, and I was walking through CVS. In the toy world, it's like a known thing. Like Walgreens has a better toy aisle than CVS. CVS's toy aisle sucks.
Right.
And this wasn't even in the toy aisle. I was like near the bread. There just was a random Phoebe and podcast Funko Pops like sitting by themselves. I was like, this is so peculiar.
Yeah, it's like when I see them at Michael's and I'm like, why are there Funko Pops at Michael's near the register? That's so weird.